The Piper Alpha platform was a colossal offshore installation situated in the North Sea, a remote and challenging environment for oil drilling. Its location, approximately 120 miles northeast of Aberdeen, Scotland, placed it in the heart of one of the most productive oil and gas fields in the world during the late 1970s. And it was hailed as one of the pioneering structures in offshore drilling on completion of its construction by the end of 1970s. The choice of the Piper Alpha's location was not arbitrary. The North Sea, while rich in resources, posed significant logistical and environmental challenges due to its harsh weather conditions, extreme depths, and corrosive saltwater environment. But it was strategically positioned to access substantial oil and gas reservoirs beneath the seabed. This was Piper Alpha's primary purpose, extracting oil and natural gas, which can then be processed and sold. It served as a vital hub for extracting crude oil and natural gas from beneath the seabed. Oil platforms like Piper Alpha were not just engineering marvels, they were economic lifelines, contributing substantially to the energy needs of the United Kingdom and global energy markets. At the time of the disaster, Piper Alpha was operated by Occidental Petroleum, Caledonia Limited, a subsidiary of the American multinational oil and gas corporation, Occidental Petroleum Corporation. Occidental Petroleum was a major player in the oil and gas industry, responsible for the management and operation of the platform. The tragedy of Piper Alpha was born out of a sequence of events that, when analyzed in detail, reveal a series of interconnected errors and unfortunate circumstances. The pivotal moment leading to the disaster began when maintenance work was scheduled on Piper Alpha on the fateful evening of July 6, 1988. The maintenance team was tasked with removing a gas condensate pump, a routine operation aimed at ensuring the platform's continued functioning. Tragically, a miscommunication between the platform's operators and the maintenance crew set the stage for catastrophe. If we take a closer look at the whole fiasco, then we notice that the main issue was the fact that the maintenance team mistakenly believed that the pump they were working on was entirely isolated from the live systems of the platform. This erroneous belief was a critical error, as they proceeded to remove the pump's safety valve. This valve, unbeknownst to them, played a vital role in maintaining pressure in a critical gas line. This sheds light on the faulty management that we'll see throughout this story. With the safety valve removed, the platform's intricate safety net was breached. Instead of the gas being safely contained, it began to leak into the platform's atmosphere, a highly dangerous situation that set the stage for disaster. The gas condensate, highly flammable and volatile, was now escaping into the atmosphere. This gas was odorless and invisible, making it impossible for the crew to detect the imminent danger. Unbeknownst to them, the platform was gradually becoming a ticking time bomb. The catastrophic climax occurred when the gas condensate found an ignition source. Nearby equipment, likely operating as part of the platform's normal functions, unknowingly provided the spark that would turn the leaked gas into a catastrophic explosion and a towering fireball. The ignition unleashed an unimaginable explosion that tore through Piper Alpha. The ensuing fireball engulfed the entire platform, creating a hellish inferno that consumed everything in its path. This disaster still serves as a stark reminder of how a series of small errors and miscommunications, compounded by a lack of awareness regarding the critical safety measures, can lead to a catastrophic event with far-reaching consequences. And as smoke and debris rise into the atmosphere, government authorities scrambled to set up a response team to contain the damage. The aftermath of the Piper Alpha disaster was a harrowing and sobering period, marked by the immediate response to the explosion and fireball, the profound loss of life, extensive physical and psychological injuries, and the utter destruction of the once mighty platform. The explosion and ensuing fireball that consumed Piper Alpha presented an unparalleled catastrophe that demanded an immediate and coordinated response. The sheer scale of the disaster and the conditions faced by the rescue teams defy comprehension. The ignition of the gas condensate resulted in an immense fireball that engulfed the entire platform. The intensity of the fire was overwhelming, with flames reaching into the sky and thick, choking smoke billowing in all directions. Crew members who found themselves in the midst of this inferno faced a nightmarish scenario of heat, flames, and chaos. In the face of this catastrophe, a desperate rescue operation was launched. Helicopters were dispatched from nearby offshore platforms, and the Coast Guard also joined the rescue efforts. The urgency was clear. The trapped crew members were running out of time, and the fire was rapidly spreading and intensifying. The heroic rescue teams faced formidable challenges. The intense heat emanating from the burning platform made it exceedingly difficult for rescuers to approach. Visibility was severely limited due to the thick smoke, and the chaotic conditions added to the difficulty of the operation. Despite these challenges, the rescue teams displayed unwavering determination to save lives. But in spite of their best efforts, the Piper Alpha disaster inflicted an immense human toll, leaving a lasting impact on the survivors and the families of those who perished. The most heart-wrenching consequence of the disaster was the tragic loss of 167 lives. Many of these individuals were trapped on the platform and had no means of escape as the flames consumed the structure. Others, tragically, lost their lives during the courageous rescue attempts. The toll was catastrophic and left a profound void in the lives of countless families. In addition to the staggering loss of life, numerous survivors sustained severe injuries. These injuries ranged from agonizing burns and the effects of smoke inhalation to fractures and traumatic injuries caused by the force of the initial explosion. The physical pain and suffering endured by the survivors were substantial and long-lasting. Beyond physical injuries, the survivors and witnesses of the Piper Alpha disaster also bore deep psychological scars. The trauma of witnessing the horrifying events, the helplessness felt in the face of overwhelming danger, and the grief of losing colleagues and friends left lasting emotional wounds. Many survivors struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and other mental health challenges for years to come. The once proud Piper Alpha platform, a symbol of industrial prowess and human achievement, was reduced to a charred ruin by the catastrophic explosion and fire. The explosion and subsequent fire were of such catastrophic magnitude that they resulted in the complete obliteration of the Piper Alpha platform. What had once stood as a marvel of engineering and technology was transformed into a soldering, unrecognizable mass of wreckage. As the fire continued to rage uncontrollably, the structural integrity of the platform was compromised to the point of no return. Ultimately, Piper Alpha sank beneath the waters of the North Sea, becoming a solemn and haunting underwater memorial. It served as a poignant reminder of the lives lost and the catastrophic failure of safety measures on that fateful day. In conclusion, the immediate aftermath of the Piper Alpha disaster was a chapter of unimaginable horror and heroism. It was marked by the valiant efforts of rescue teams, the profound loss of life, the physical and psychological injuries endured by survivors, and the haunting image of a once mighty platform reduced to a sunken testament to the perils of the offshore oil and gas industry. The Piper Alpha disaster remains an indelible scar on the collective memory, forever emphasizing the need for stringent safety measures and the human cost of complacency in high-risk environments. And all of this led to a want, or rather a need, for the families of all the departed men and women for some level of accountability. Many of them had lost their husband, their son, their father, and they needed answers, which led to significant inquiries into what really caused the incident. In spite of the amazing efforts of various security personnel, only 61 people survived the fire that consumed the rig on 6th July 1988. Later on, many people would recount that there was not one family in the area and extended area that didn't have a relative or close friend that was working in the oil and gas industry. There was not one family that didn't have to taste a great loss that day. Aberdeen became a very solemn city for a very long time. Any memorial that happened, any funeral service that existed, all were at full capacity, and people were coming in every day for more and more bodies to be buried or cremated. But the most tragic part of this story is that out of the 167 people that died, 30 bodies were never found. Almost 30 years after the disaster, a man would come forward to recount his father, Mark Reed's experience aboard the Piper Alpha on the day of the disaster. Although he was just an infant at the time, he could distinctly remember thinking as he grew older that his father had funny hands, misshapen and almost rudimentary. It was only much later that he found that to be the result of skin grafts. And in the end, the real pain of the disaster was felt by those who survived and the families of those involved. More than 20% of those who survived suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Mark Reed ended a shadow of his former self, periodically relapsing into alcoholism to cope with the memories. He fractured family ties and lost all chance to establish a normal working life. The author would write, the Piper Alpha disaster may have occurred in the summer of 1988, but its impact would ripple like a tidal wave through their family life for another 23 years. While the accident was the first and most visible domino to fall, many other dominoes, initially obscured from view, would tumble one by one until the last. On 25th August 2011, just a few months before I started my PhD, my father succumbed to his recurring PTSD-induced alcoholism, dying as a result of related health complications. He had only my younger brother by his side as he passed. My father was just 48 years old. Stories like these abound among the families of Aberdeen. In the aftermath of the Piper Alpha disaster, a thorough investigation into the causes and contributing factors was imperative to uncover the underlying issues and hold responsible parties accountable. The investigations, most notably the Cullen Inquiry, shed light on a multitude of safety failures and systemic problems that played a critical role in the disaster. The Cullen Inquiry, led by Lord Cullen, a distinguished Scottish judge, was the most significant and comprehensive of the inquiries initiated in response to the Piper Alpha disaster. Its primary purpose was to establish the root causes of the disaster and recommend measures to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The inquiry was conducted with the utmost seriousness and impartiality, recognizing the gravity of the incident and its far-reaching implications. The findings and conclusions of the Cullen Inquiry exposed a series of critical safety lapses and systemic issues that contributed to the Piper Alpha disaster. These revelations served as a stark indictment of the safety practices within the offshore oil and gas industry at the time. The Cullen Inquiry identified a fundamental flaw in Occidental Petroleum's safety procedures. It found that the company had failed to establish adequate safety procedures for maintenance work on the platform. This omission allowed for the miscommunication and confusion that led to the removal of the crucial safety valve, a pivotal event in the disaster. Another damning finding was the lack of adequate training for crew members, particularly in emergency procedures. Many individuals on Piper Alpha had not received proper training for responding to emergencies, and some had never participated in a fire drill. This lack of preparedness severely hampered the crew's ability to react effectively when the disaster struck. The miscommunication between the maintenance crew and platform operators emerged as a central issue. This communication breakdown was a critical factor that led to the temporary removal of the safety valve. It underscored the importance of clear and effective communication, especially during high-risk operations on offshore platforms. One of the most alarming findings was the existence of a safety culture within Occidental Petroleum that prioritized production over safety concerns. The inquiry's revelations indicated a pervasive disregard for safety protocols and a culture that, in pursuit of profit, downplayed the importance of safety measures. As a direct consequence of the findings and conclusions of the Cullen inquiry, legal actions were pursued to hold individuals and companies accountable for their roles in the disaster. Occidental Petroleum, Caledonia Limited was fined $1.5 million for its role in the Piper Alpha disaster. This substantial fine reflected the gravity of the safety failures and shortcomings identified by the inquiry and served as a financial penalty for the company's failures. Several individuals faced criminal charges related to safety violations. These charges aimed to ensure that those responsible for the lapses in safety procedures were held personally accountable for their actions or inactions. In essence, the investigations following the Piper Alpha disaster, culminating in the Cullen inquiry, provided a comprehensive understanding of the factors that led to the tragedy. They highlighted the critical need for robust safety procedures, effective training, clear communication, and a genuine commitment to safety in the offshore oil and gas industry. The imposition of fines and legal actions underscored the principle of accountability, reinforcing the message that safety must always take precedence over production in such high-risk environments. The lessons learned from the Piper Alpha disaster continue to influence safety practices in the industry to this day, ensuring that the memory of the tragedy serves as a catalyst for lasting change. And now, all these years later, the memories and impact of this disaster is very apparent. The Piper Alpha disaster had a profound and enduring impact on the offshore oil and gas industry, as well as on safety practices and regulations globally. It served as a painful reminder of the consequences of lax safety measures and catalyzed significant changes that continue to shape the industry to this day. Piper Alpha was a seismic wake-up call for the offshore oil and gas industry. It brought to light the grave risks associated with offshore drilling operations and the dire consequences of insufficient safety measures. In the aftermath of the disaster, regulatory bodies in the North Sea and around the world implemented stricter safety regulations. These regulations encompassed all aspects of offshore drilling, from equipment standards to emergency response protocols. Industry stakeholders were compelled to reevaluate their priorities. Safety became paramount, with a shift away from a production-first mentality. The disaster underscored that the cost of complacency could far exceed any short-term gains. The disaster prompted the development and implementation of more rigorous safety standards and protocols for offshore drilling operations. These protocols cover every facet of platform operations, from routine maintenance to emergency evacuation procedures. Regular safety audits became an integral part of offshore operations. Companies were required to conduct comprehensive safety assessments, identify potential risks, and take proactive measures to mitigate them. The importance of comprehensive emergency response plans was emphasized. Platforms and drilling companies were mandated to have well-defined, rehearsed plans in place to respond effectively to emergencies, including fires, blowouts, and evacuations. The disaster highlighted the critical role of personnel training. Crew members now receive more extensive and rigorous training in safety procedures, including fire drills and emergency response exercises. Piper Alpha serves as a stark reminder that safety is an ongoing process. Companies in the offshore oil and gas industry must continuously assess and improve their safety procedures. This includes incorporating lessons learned from incidents, conducting regular safety drills, and staying up to date with technological advancements. The disaster also reinforced the importance of crisis management. Companies are now better equipped to handle crises, with established incident command structures and clear lines of communication, ensuring a coordinated response during emergencies. A poignant testament to the lasting impact of the Piper Alpha disaster is the memorial erected in Aberdeen, Scotland. This memorial stands as a solemn reminder of the lives lost and a symbol of the enduring commitment to safety in the industry. It serves as a place for reflection and remembrance, not only for the families of the victims, but for the entire industry. In conclusion, the Piper Alpha disaster was a turning point for the offshore oil and gas industry. It prompted sweeping reforms, instilled a renewed focus on safety, and led to the development of rigorous safety standards and protocols. The ongoing vigilance and commitment to continuous improvement ensure that the lessons of Piper Alpha are never forgotten. The memorial in Aberdeen stands as a powerful symbol of the industry's enduring commitment to preventing such tragedies in the future, honoring the lives lost and prioritizing the safety of those who work in this challenging and critical sector. The Piper Alpha disaster is a harrowing chapter in the history of offshore oil and gas drilling. It stands as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences that can result from a combination of human error, miscommunication, and inadequate safety measures. While the events of July 6, 1988 were undeniably tragic, they also catalyzed much-needed reforms in the industry, leading to safer practices and a renewed commitment to protecting the lives of offshore workers. As we reflect on the Piper Alpha disaster, we must continue to prioritize safety above all else, recognizing that the cost of failure is measured not only in economic terms, but in human lives lost and families forever changed. If you liked the video, then do consider dropping a like and subscribing. It is only due to your continuous support that content creators like me can keep making the videos they love. Moreover, if you like videos on topics like these and hope that awareness about disasters like this can help us be more vigilant in the future, then be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I drop a new video. And as always, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.